Hello everyone, this is Suzanne at The Gospel Truth. Welcome back. Today we're going to be almost finishing up our book that we've been studying out of. The last two chapters are going to be very, very good and kind of finish up the thoughts throughout the book. And today, Dr. David Jeremiah is going to share with us his experience when he found out he had cancer. So this should be a very interesting study for us. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to go as far as I can go. This may go 20, 25 minutes. We'll see where we're at after we get started. I hope you're enjoying this study as much as I have been enjoying it. We do have a couple of new subscribers. Welcome to our channel. This is our group. We are here to go, grow, and glow for Jesus, to daily transform our minds, to study our Bible, to keep in prayer, and to keep us strong in our faith. I hope you find a home here with us and that you enjoy what we're doing. If you have any prayer requests, any favorite verses you want to pop in there, if you would, please just press that like button if you're viewing it. It only takes a nanosecond to do that. I sure would appreciate it. That's one way that YouTube knows how many are viewing and has something to do with algorithms. I don't quite understand it all, but I guess it's important. All right, let's get started. The fundamentals of fortitude. Grab me a sip of tea. Today I'm enjoying Bigelow peach tea. It's very good. All right, let's get started. I've mentioned already in these pages my battle against cancer many years ago. That was the defining season in my life, certainly one in which my world was turned upside down, not just once, but many times in rapid succession. And certainly one in which I desperately needed every gift my Heavenly Father was willing to give so that I could continue pressing forward in my race. Excuse me, Sam, get out of there. Come on, get out of there. I know. He's snooping where he shouldn't be snooping. You stay out of there. In sharing that story here, briefly, I promise, my goal is not to highlight my struggles. Instead, I want to show how those struggles produce fortitude in me. They helped me develop the strength not only for that moment, but one that has allowed me to weather the ups and downs and the difficulties of life in every season since. We all need to learn how to do that, right? It all began on an ordinary Monday morning with what should have been a routine checkup. It was still early as I arrived at the Center for Executive Health in La Jolla. The exam got underway at 7:45 a.m. with the interview, and I handled the usual barrage of questions from the nurses armed with their clipboards. That tells you how old this is, armed with clipboards. Now they do it all on computer. When I was ushered over into another part of the clinic for an EKG stress test, it went smoothly, and I could tell my numbers were good ones. So far, so good. I smiled with satisfaction as the doctors nodded and made little checks on their notepads. They stroked their chins and admitted that I was in pretty fair shape for a grizzly 53-year-old veteran of life's trenches. Better still, the physical exam was downhill all the way after the EKG. I had been through all this before, and it was easy to tell that I was checking out fine on the remaining test. The men in the white coats gave me a thumbs up at every point. I bet he's feeling pretty good right now, right? We all like to get those good reports and those thumbs up. Late in the morning, I was taken to an examining room where I met the head physician. He asked me to lie face up on the table, and I complied. The doctor began to go over my body from head to toe. Soon I'll have this whole thing behind me, I thought. It will feel good to have another successful physical in the books. The white coats will hand me the bill and show me the door. I will be free to climb into my van, drive back down the highway, and get on with my crowded agenda. And I'll have a little extra spring in my step, knowing that for one more round, I come out victorious in the battle against time and corruption. I feel that way when I go to the doctor and I get you're fine, you're strong. When we get those times where it's not fine, that's when we start being concerned. Those were my thoughts. That's when the bomb fell. As the doctor probed the left side of my abdomen, he said, Dr. Jeremiah, you have a mass here in your abdomen that causes me some concern. It feels to me as if your spleen is greatly enlarged. I felt my heart skip a beat. What do you think it is? I asked. And I remember when I passed out after my shoulder surgery, the next day I passed out at my daughter's. I went into arrhythmia, and I was taken right away to the heart center, and I was in there like 4 days. They were running all kind of tests, and they kept coming back with your blood pressure's high. Your blood pressure drops significantly when you go from laying down to sitting to standing. And then I had to have a stress test and all that, and it was very disconcerting for sure. So I can kind of understand that your heart skips a beat when they tell you something. I can't say, he replied quietly, until we see a CAT scan of that part of your body. That's it. 3 sentences, a handful of words, brought a crowded, thriving life to a screeching halt. As I sat up and dressed myself, I struggled to absorb the doctor's words. My mind launched into spin control mode, searching for positive angles. I had my scan late that afternoon in the radiology center across the street and was informed that the results wouldn't be available until the following day. At least the suspense wouldn't be prolonged. Within hours, I would be given words of comfort or something else. I was shell-shocked that afternoon as I went through the motions of the scan and closed out my business with the clinic. I was still in a daze as I made my way back to my home in El Cajon. How was I going to handle this news bulletin there? This was something I needed to handle carefully. It was, after all, a bomb. I knew that Donna, my wife, planned to leave the next day to visit her mother in New Hampshire. She would be scrambling around the house, packing suitcases, and orchestrating last-minute arrangements. She'd have that happy, busy glow about her, energized by the anticipation of her trip. That's why I decided to keep silent. Why rain on her parade? At this point, everything was preliminary and tentative. I decided to let this evening be a bright one for at least one of us. I refused to ruin a pleasant trip for my loving wife. I can understand that. Sometimes news can wait a little bit. And sometimes it's not that important to speak out at that moment. And sometimes timing is everything. So I kept the curtains tightly shut on the black clouds inside me. I smiled and made the best I could of the situation. The next morning, I drove Donna to the airport and watched her plane disappear into the blue, trouble-free sky that still existed for other people. Then I headed to my office, where I sat and watched my telephone, waiting for the call that would reveal my earthly fate. The moments ticked by slowly, and every ring was a false alarm. Finally, that afternoon, I picked up the receiver and heard the doctor's calm voice on the other end of the line. I listened desperately for victorious affirmation, words about tests that came back negative, about lumps that were less than they seemed. I wanted those words desperately, and I poured out my soul praying for them. That's what I did. I prayed that something wasn't seriously wrong for my heart. And after everything was said and done, for the first few weeks, I was afraid to move to do anything. Like, am I going to bring on arrhythmia again? What am I going to do? But those words were not available for me. Instead, the doctor's fears were confirmed. I had a mass on my spleen. The doctor carefully explained to me that 3 radiologists examined the scan and shared the firm opinion that I had lymphoma, a cancer that attacks the lymphatic system, of which the spleen is the center. We talked for a few minutes, and then I returned the receiver to the cradle of the phone. The most terrible phone call of my life was over. I felt emptiness and despair rising up inside me. Now, you may be thinking at this point, but he's a minister. He knows the word inside out. Why is he having all these fears? Why doesn't he just trust in the Lord? Why doesn't he just take one day at a time? Why is he so unsettled? Well, we're human. And we have emotions and feelings and thoughts, and sometimes we do get afraid, especially when it comes to our health. Nobody wants to hear these words. Nobody wants to have to change their entire lifestyle, deal with months of chemotherapy, maybe surgeries. It's a scary place to be. And I think the Lord knows that. He knows we're human. He knows we get afraid. And I know Dr. Jeremiah will probably share with us how he is going to be coming through this and what his thought process was. It was Tuesday, the day for the staff meeting at our church, another difficult hurdle in my current state of turmoil. I kept the meeting short, dismissing it after a brief time of prayer. Then I sought out my close friends and staff members, Dr. Ken Nichols, and beckoned him into my office. I closed the door carefully and sat down beside him and shared with him the details of my physical and the prognosis. He was the first person with whom I shared the crisis. We cried, embraced, and prayed. Then we pulled ourselves together and began to think about what to do. Ken had an idea. He remembered a longtime friend of mine, Dr. Marv Eastland of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've known him since I was a pastor there many years ago. Dr. Eastland is not only a knowledgeable physician, but he is also an experienced sufferer who spent 6 weeks in Mayo Clinic for a pancreatic disorder. Ken thought Dr. Eastland might be able to help, and that sounded good to me. I made the call, and Dr. Eastland didn't hesitate before issuing a directive to go to Mayo Clinic immediately. My kind friend promised to make a phone call to expedite things for me. In a matter of hours, I had an appointment at the Mayo Clinic. You know, when you're going through something of this magnitude, it's great to join support groups, that people that have been through it, that can encourage and uplift you. And it's a great source to go to. And I'm glad that he had these people that could expedite things for him. We all don't have that. And it's just a blessing when it does happen. On Thursday morning of that same week, I boarded a plane heading eastward. I was traveling on business. I was scheduled to speak at rallies in New Hampshire and Maine to support our Turning Point radio ministry. My friend Steve and Susan Caldell were flying with me. The plan was for Donna to meet us in Manchester at the first rally. As so often happens with air travel, the connections were previously tight, so we arrived at the rally with just enough time for me to kiss Donna hello and hurry to the platform. The event was thrilling, and it lifted my spirits. The building was packed with 1,500 excited listeners. Several of them gave their hearts to Christ that night, securing their eternal destinies. Just at that time, I was having a close encounter with death. These wonderful souls were having their first encounters with eternal life. I shook hands, chatted with folks, and signed books and Bibles till the last of the crowd went home. On the way back to the hotel, Donna and I stopped for a late dinner. That's where the thrill of the evening wore off. I became pensive over my plate because I knew that the time had come to level with my wife about the week's events. We found our hotel and settled into the room, unpacking our things and turning down the sheets. Then I sat down on the bed and opened to Donna those dark curtains of my soul. I told her the whole story of the 3 days of despair. When I finally finished, we cried and prayed and held each other through most of the night. There, far from home, on the other side of the continent, there, in a strange hotel, we huddled together to face the most challenging moment of our 30-plus years of marriage. The rallies came to an end, and Donna and I returned home at last. There were more doctor examinations and troublesome hours of sorting out insurance questions. Our ministry had begun a new insurance plan at the beginning of October, and that coverage would not extend to a trip to Mayo. It looked as if we had to settle for surgery in San Diego. I had a date with the doctors for Tuesday morning at Sharp Hospital, at which time my spleen would be removed. My condition was no longer a secret. I began to call some of my network of ministry friends around the country. I coveted their prayers. One of these men was Lowell Davey, president of the Bible Broadcasting Network. When I called him and described my situation, he responded without hesitation. David, you're going to Mayo Clinic. If your insurance will not cover it, I'll raise the money myself. I think you'll understand that by this time, Donna and I were spent. The emotional roller coaster had left us dizzy and exhausted. I told Lowell that my surgery was scheduled for Tuesday morning at 7:45, only 5 days from then. I set a condition. If you can get me into Mayo Clinic on Monday morning, I said I'll go then. 2 hours later, I received a phone call from a doctor at Mayo Clinic. calling to confirm my appointment at 7:45 Monday morning. I was astounded, to put it mildly. True friendship is a powerful force for strength and encouragement. Sam's having a little bit of an issue this morning. With our minds finally set on a course of action, I began to prepare myself for the weekend. I was scheduled to officiate at a wedding for the daughter of my administrative secretary on Saturday afternoon at 3. Once again, I was mindful of my personal situation, casting a pall over someone else's joyful occasion, particularly in the case of a wedding. I asked for the couple to keep in the dark about my crisis until after the ceremony. This was their once-in-a-lifetime day, and it should be filled with joy. I like people like this, that they will not ruin other people's joys because of their circumstances. And again, it's all in that timing of telling something. The next morning, I preached at both services. The Lord once again honored his word, but this was just not another Sunday for me. Afterward, I told Donna that in 25 years of preaching, I've never felt the presence of the Lord as I did that day. Other preachers know this feelings. At times, it was almost as if I were sitting on a pew in the back of my mind, listening to someone else preach. I was deeply aware of Paul's statement, "When I am weak, then I am strong." I've never been so weak, and he'd never seemed so strong. That afternoon, we flew east, this time toward Mayo Clinic. During my first appointment, there were rounds of blood tests, physical examinations, and more questions. Finally, I met with the first doctor. She went over the results and confirmed the diagnosis of lymphoma. She also made the arrangements for my next appointment in the Department of Hematology. When she called hematology, she was told that no opening would be available until Thursday. My heart sank. This was Monday. 3 days seemed like an eternity, and I had work to do back home. How could we wait here for 72 hours? The doctor sensed my desperation. She considered quietly for a minute and finally said, "I know one of the doctors in that department. Let me call him." The doctor called her friend, and I heard her say into the phone, "He's a pastor from San Diego. His name is David Jeremiah." Then a look of surprise flashed across her face. She put her hand over the mouthpiece and turned to me. "He knows you," she said. Speaking on the phone, she said, "Does that mean you'll see him this afternoon?" It did. I was instructed to head right over. My doctor had been speaking to a colleague named Dr. Thomas Witzig, who had once heard me speak at Mooney Founders Week. Dr. Witzig is a wonderful Christ follower, and it pleased me greatly to discover that he would be the lead physician. When we sat down to talk, he walked me through the procedures to come during the next few days. Dr. Witzig agreed the surgery was required, and it was scheduled for Tuesday morning at the Methodist Hospital in the Mayo Clinic complex. That's where I went the next morning. The surgery lasted about 2 hours and revealed that the lymphoma was centered in the area immediately around my spleen. The surgeon decided to leave the spleen in place. It was actually not disease as they had anticipated. This was the first tentatively hopeful medical news we received, and you can imagine our gratitude. The doctor patiently educated Donna and me about my condition. They explained that lymphoma is a treatable form of cancer. There are never any guarantees with this dreaded enemy, but we at least had the possibility for recovery through chemotherapy that made hope possible. We held tightly to that hope. Our spirits basked in the prayer, support, and encouragement of our church family and friends. We fed on their support and felt strengthened for the battle ahead. But in the midst of all the love and affirmation, it was the Lord, a stronghold in the day of trouble, Nehemiah 1:7, who knew the needs of my body and soul most deeply. It was he who walked with me through the valley of the shadow, he who lavished upon me a deeper, more personal experience of his presence than I'd ever known before. As I sought refuge in his word, I found consolation beyond description for my troubled spirit. Again and again I was reminded of the words of the Apostle Paul. Long ago he was confronted with death and fear, and perhaps he experienced emotions a bit like my own. Paul was so gifted and had a heart eager to minister, yet he was forced to bide his time in dark prison. I know Paul asked God the same question I have asked, and I'm grateful he recorded God's answers. And he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I would rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest on me." God's grace is sufficient. I can tell you it's true. Okay, we're going to stop here. Next time we come back, he's going to talk about life is difficult. and then we'll go into the 5 principles to remember. And that will be the finish of our book. Now, I think we can take great comfort knowing that God's not going to think less of us, look down at us, take our salvation away because we have all these emotions that we deal with on a daily basis. And especially when it comes to our health, no one wants to get a bad report. But yet, in the back of our mind, we know we're not going to live forever. And there's never going to be a good time that death is going to hit us. There just isn't. Because we tend to want to keep going, keep doing things for our family, our friends, keep ministering. And one day the Lord is going to say, well done, my child, it's time to come home. And that is a great comfort to me. And I always try to put things in a correct perspective. And as I'm getting older, it seems the more I go to the doctor, some of the tests are coming up. Oh, this is high, this is low, this is that. So I'm becoming kind of used to it. My body is aging, and that's just the way it goes with life. All right, I hope you've enjoyed Dr. David Jeremiah sharing his emotions and his cancer battle. And I can't wait to get into those 5 principles. That should be very interesting. All right, I just want to talk for a little bit. My daughter came by yesterday and my grandson. We went through, see my movies over there? We went through all of them. I got rid of a lot of them. Kept the ones that we enjoyed the most. And she brought back all my beautiful yarn. And I am so excited. There's a woman, she's the receptionist of where I have physical therapy. She's not finding out the sex of the baby, if it's a boy or girl. So I think this yarn right here will be perfect to make her a baby cocoon for the baby. And just look at those colors. There, now we can see them. This is called hopscotch yarn. I picked this up a long time ago. They were like $1 something a skein. They were clearanced out. And I'm so glad that over the probably past 5 years maybe, I have stocked up on yarn at good prices when prices were lower. Yarn is almost unreachable today. The prices have really gone up, but I have a ton of yarn. And I do intend to get my Addie knitting machine up and running to make some hats and scarves and headbands, and I'm so excited. I am doing my exercises on my shoulder, on my knee. I wake up, it's pretty rough, but once I get up and I get in motion a little bit, that kind of subsides. I started taking ibuprofen. I always make sure I have a full stomach, and I think that's been helping a lot with the inflammation. So we're in therapy 3 times a week, and this week's a little bit jumbled. I had to cancel today because I'm taking my neighbor. She has a dental appointment about half hour from here. She has to have an extraction today, so I'm going to take her, and we're taking the baby with us this afternoon to get that done. And him and her husband and his brother are going to come sometime, probably 3:34, to take the dresser, our old dresser, out. Yesterday, my daughter and I, we emptied out that dresser. We went through my closet. I got rid of a lot of stuff. We went through all the movies. And the next thing to do is see all those mess of books. Yeah, I need to go through and thin those out. A lot of them I got at the thrift store at like 50 cents a book. Sometimes they had them 3 for 99 cents. I got very good deals on the other books over the years, but it's time to do some thinning. And it's hard for me to do because I love my books. And I really enjoy studying out of all the devotional books and stuff like that. I've got a lot of them, so we've got enough material to go into eternity here. So anyway, I think that's it for today. I love each and every one of you. Tomorrow is Tuesday. We have physical therapy. Wednesday, we're going to cancel physical therapy. And we have something going on. Oh, Wednesday, we're having our new used dresser coming from Oakland Hope. This dresser looks brand new. I told you before, I'm so excited. I got it for $80. I bet it was the $1,600 dresser. I mean, it is fabulous. When I get it, I will take pictures. I'm so excited. And sometimes you don't have to spend a lot of money on stuff if you know where to look. And you can get some really good bargains out there. And I'm so pleased that my daughter works there and I'm able to get her discount and I get free delivery. Can't beat that. The Lord sure is smiling down on me. All right, you take care. You have a blessed day. And Joanne, thank you so much. You always comment. You always say such nice things. And, oh, another thing I want to bring up. I will be having a giveaway soon. And it may be a hat. It may be a gift card. I haven't decided. It may be a devotional books. I haven't decided yet. But very soon we will be having a very nice giveaway. It's my way of saying thank you. Thank you for being faithful. Thank you for sticking with me through thick and thin. And thank you for all your prayers, all that good stuff. All right, you take care. You have a blessed day in the Lord. And I'll be back tomorrow with another great time in this book, Keep the Faith, How to Stand Strong in a World Turned Upside Down by Dr. David Jeremiah. Bye for now. God bless you all.